Ross Pluskin here at the Top Shelf Aquatics Farm. Now, in our last couple of videos in our running series, What is a Fish?, we've really addressed some really large, charismatic reef fish. We've talked about tangs, we've talked about groupers, serenity, we've even talked about smaller, more complicated, beautiful fish like the Calliomytidae, the mandarin dragonettes, the Antheanae, the Anthias. We've talked about some really wonderful, charismatic reef fish. Today, we're going to be discussing a little bit more of an unsung hero in the reef aquarium community. Something that is omnipresent both in the freshwater and saltwater aquarium industries, yet especially in kind of both, it kind of gets smidgened a little bit, a little downpressed, because for many of us, it was potentially one of the first fish species we ever worked with. Now today, of course, we're going to be talking about the Poeciloidae, the American livebearers. These are signified by the wonderful specimens you see behind me, the saltwater molly. So let's talk about the Poeciloidae, the American livebearers. Well, for the most part, they are an American fish family. They are from North America, ranging through all throughout Central America and down towards South America, where they inhabit a myriad of environments, from robust, pristine mountain streams, all the way down to kind of what we're mainly going to be talking about. The members of the Poeciloidae that interact with intertidal environments, where there's all these niches for a fish like the Poeciloidae. There's all these areas where there's just a little bit of standing water, where we would have a ton of mosquitoes and bugs and leeches and all kinds of stuff that would thrive in there. You'll see lots of this species, the wild sailfin molly, Poecilina letifina. You'll see them occupying all those niches, that stagnant water where all these bugs and algae and all these things grow, and they're constantly thriving, nipping at it. It's because these fish are able to breathe and utilize air, as well as being able to be highly tolerant to toxic compounds such as hydrogen sulfide. They can handle high levels of ammonia, nitrite, nitrate, phosphates. They're really tough little buggers that are meant to survive in these very limited, stagnant pools. And because of that, they are extremely hardy to keep in aquariums. Now, everyone who's kept fresh water has surely worked with one of these in the past. And one of the wonderful things that one realizes is that they are, as their name describes, true live bearers. They don't go through any of the larval life cycles or pelagic states that any of our reef species do, and they don't even lay eggs like some of our more robust freshwater species like the cichlids. They go through a complete gestation period where the mother will hold on to the eggs, hatch the eggs, and then develop the fry into basically tiny little mini mollies and then secrete them all at once. So this strategy has allowed mollies to rapidly colonize all kinds of water bodies. And for our purposes, it's very interesting to consider that a lot of that area, a lot of those niches they occupy, are in interaction zones between saltwater and freshwater. And it's because of that that the molly is not only tough as bricks, but has many ecological advantages that we can harness in the reef aquarium industry and then apply towards a wide myriad of applications. So let's go through a few applications that we could potentially have with these, the saltwater mollies that we're rearing here at the TSA farm. Now, the first, and this applies to all the other applications of these saltwater mollies, is that these individuals, like you see here, were brought in from freshwater culture and then completely brought up and acclimated over the period of weeks to a full saltwater strength of 1.0263 specific gravity. So, what's the big advantage of that? Well, no matter what fish you're getting in the reef aquarium industry, no matter what quarantine it went through, with very few exceptions, and even when it increases in cost as you're paying for more and more quarantine fish, there are few fish in the reef aquarium industry that can enter full freshwater and then toggle back with relative ease back to full saltwater. This is important because every other fish, because they're dwelling in at least some level of salt water, carries the potential to carry a wide range of saltwater dependent parasitic diseases. Things like uranema, and especially the ectoparasitic diseases Amylodinium, saltwater velvet, and Cryptocaryon, saltwater ick. Now, if we have our mollies that are naturally, because of their thick slime coat, resistant to these ectoparasites, and we have them start entirely in fresh water, there is an osmotic environment that those mollies are living in for a prolonged period of time, which is hostile to all stages of those parasites. So as long as our mollies are brought in from fresh water or contained and bred in a full saltwater system where they have no contact with other marine fish, captive, wild, or otherwise, their risk of carrying those ectoparasitic diseases and being able to transfer them into a new system are as minimal as can be feasibly achieved in a production setting such as ours. So, the first major application we have for these saltwater mollies is if we're trying to cycle a new aquarium, especially something small, a desktop aquarium, a nano. We want to have something that has minimal flow, and we don't necessarily want to spend a full $20 on a damsel. We don't want to spend a bunch of money on a clownfish just so we can enter the tank and be basically nothing but an ammonia pump. Clownfish and damsels are a little bit more precious and difficult to raise and should be treated as such, as display fish, even when they are most aggressive. But a molly is very, 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 very cheap. Mollies can be purchased, several mollies can be purchased for the same price as a single clownfish, and those can be put into the aquarium because they're not only extremely tolerant of the rise and fall of ammonia that is going to come with the regular cycling of a new aquarium, they're really tough, and they're going to be constantly being able to dispatch that ammonia to drive your nitrogen cycle the whole way through. And this carries on to our second major application. What is that molly going to be doing as it's in the aquarium and as that aquarium is slowly getting more and more nitrogen and phosphorus dosed into it and is slowly getting illuminated? Why, there's going to be pest algae and pest invertebrates that slowly start to grow, and the molly is going to be a great mechanism for applying atmospheric pressure on all that rock and glass work, especially in a low flow environment, and especially when they get a little bit bigger, such as the size you see before me. They are ravenous feeders of algae, and more importantly, everything growing on the algae. All these complexes that really help pest algae seize and take hold. In the wild, we see this at play. Saltwater mollies are swimming around in a few inches of water, and they're ravenously hitting the roots of mangroves and rocks and anything that might be growing algae and anything that might be growing amphipods or anything else, little crustaceans and the like. So, because of being able to apply this kind of atmospheric level of forage pressure, a molly is in many ways a low flow, low cost, and highly reproducible alternative to a tang, especially in many, many nano aquariums. Now, I'm not saying a molly is anywhere near the level of majesty and worth as a tang, but a tang should be treated as a display fish first and catered to first, and treated as cleaning cavalry and as something that is dependent on cleaning the tank perhaps second. Because of its cost and the precious nature of these fish, the mollies are robust and tough. You can throw swarms and swarms of them in a way that you wouldn't be able to throw massive amounts of tang pressure in the same environment. So for low flow and smaller aquariums, mollies are a wonderful cleanup crew. Now, going on for the fact that these are completely isolated and they have not been exposed to other marine fish, they have very, very minimal chances of being able to transmit successfully any ectoparasitic diseases that are dependent on a truly marine environment. How does this caveat to another realm of fish keeping? Even outside of, let's say, traditional reef keeping, there are people that love big monster reef fish. They love their big monstrous groupers. They love their big monstrous morays. And there are more and more people that are keeping niche predatory fish. And for several reasons, to be able to see your predator, be able to engage and eat live feeds, and also engaging with the reality that there are some finicky fish that will only eat live fish. We see here that the molly is a wonderful live alternative that does not need to be frozen in order to ensure that parasitic diseases are not being translated into that display predator fish. So we can see here some immediate first uses for the mollies. But let's discuss one more. It's also very nice, as you can see in our Sherwood system, we actually had quite a few mollies that weren't in strict quarantine because they were being exposed to other marine fish, but those are being pretty much where we're using them to see how well they would do with bigger, other larger, more marine fish. Are these things just going to get torn up the second they enter a system? And we were very surprised, especially in the sump of our Sherwood system, to find that when a few juvenile mollies escaped into the larger sump, even when surrounded by big emperor angels and flamingi tangs, they were not only unharmed, but thrived in their new environment and were able to grow really, really fast and big because they were able to access little grazing areas, very small little cubby holes that those big fish could not access. So another great application of the mollies is one, as having another variable size schooling fish that can be entered into the aquarium at larger numbers to access smaller and smaller niche grazing zones, but at the same time, potentially they could also act as a dither fish, a term that refers to the more fish are concentrated without being too stressful, they will actually calm each other down because there's less areas for a strict, isolated territory to be established. Now, this can be very touch and go, but depending on the size of the mollies and which fish you're trying to calm down, it could very well be an efficacious route. So lastly, if we have mollies in our reef aquariums, there's also the knowledge that we can always purchase a few mollies, and because they're live bearers, with a simple 10-gallon tank, a 20-gallon tank, freshwater or salt, we'll be able to reproduce and make our own colony, which makes them truly one of the most sustainable fish that can be present in the saltwater reef aquarium hobby right now, where not only can they be bred in captivity, but they can be on a very, very small, casual scale by even the most novice of reefers. And that's the kind of confidence and the kind of ownership that we really like to see when it comes to being able to lead the way in sustainably aquaculture cleanup crew. Now lastly, all these things wrapped together, we know that in the freshwater aquarium industry and in the saltwater aquarium industry, mollies, because they've been so readily and rapidly bred, we have so many different colors and shapes and strains of the same species of Poecilina latipina. So there's dozens of different colors, shapes, body sizes that can be played with for the display and maybe even selectively breeding in the future towards mollies that are very selective towards specific pest algae and other pests. So they have 1,000,001 different potential applications. Their ability to be reproduced rapidly and in succession in the reef aquarium environment makes them something that can be a highly valuable, efficacious tool in the reef aquarium moving forward. And that's why we at TSA salute the humble molly, and we cannot wait to be working more with this species, breeding our own different strains of this species, and potentially introducing other species of mollies and other estuarine tolerant live bearers into the reef aquarium industry. We love these fish, and we think you should too. We'll see you next time.